Hi friends, we are again here to discuss how to make better decisions, and in the last discussion of mine we were discussing 5 whys and also need to discuss certain conflicts that require further investigation while making decisions. The 5 whys also suggest that this problem may be temporary. You are working so long because you have a new account. Consider, will your hours remain this long once you are more comfortable with your new account? You need to ask, think about who is affected. First and foremost, you should consider how your decision affects you, your psychology, your personality. Specifically, how does your decision affect how you consider yourself as a person? What are your values and goals? These are the conflict, while discussing the 5 whys. Making decisions that are not value congruent. They don't align with the core beliefs that drive you, can leave you feeling unhappy and dissatisfied. For example, if a core value for you, something that is a deep part of your identity, is ambition, moving to part-time could represent a misalignment because you are no longer pursuing your ambition of getting promoted and become the top person at your company. Your core values may sometimes conflict with one another too. For example, you may have ambition and family orientedness as core values. You may need to prioritize one over the other to come to a decision. Understanding what values will be affected by your decision can help you to make the right decision. You should also consider how the problem or decision affects other people. Will any of the possible outcomes negatively affect people you care about? Take others into account throughout your decision making process, especially if you are married or have children. For example, the decision to move to part-time could have a positive impact on your kids because it would mean more time with you, but it could have a negative impact on you because you may have to give up on your ambition for a promotion. It may also have a negative on your whole family by reducing your income. List all of your options, keeping everything in your mind, because one of the important factor I discussed in previous lecture that before taking a decision, gather information. So list all your options. At first sight, it may appear that there is only one course of action, but that is usually not true. Even if your situation seems limited, try to make a list of alternatives. Don't try to evaluate them until you have got a full list. Be thorough. If you are having trouble thinking of alternatives, brainstorm with some family or friends. Again, you have to sit and you have to go for brainstorming, discussion. Of course, this doesn't have to be a physical list. It can just be in your head too. You can always cross items off the list later, but with crazy ideas might come some creative solutions that you might not have considered otherwise. For example, you could find another full-time job at a company that does not require so much overtime. You could hire a person to help you with housework, freeing up your time to spend with your family. Means there are options. You could even set up a family work evening where everyone does their work together in the same room, helping you all feel more connected. Research also suggests that having too many options can lead to confusion and make it harder to make a decision. That is also true. If you go for several options, you will be baffled, confused. Once you have generated your list, eliminate anything that is obviously impractical. Try to keep your list of options to about 5 items. Keep minimum options so as to make decision easier, simple and quick. Make a spreadsheet to weigh the potential benefits and losses of your decisions. If your problem is complex and you feel overwhelmed by the variety of possible outcomes, consider making a spreadsheet to guide your decision-making process. You can use Microsoft Excel to make a spreadsheet or just make one on a piece of paper. So, making a spreadsheet to weigh the potential benefit and losses of your decisions very important. To make a spreadsheet, create a column for each possible choice that you are considering. Within each column, make 2 sub-columns to compare the benefits and losses of each possible outcomes. Use plus and signs to indicate which items are positive and which items are negative. That is the plus sign and the minus sign for the positive as well as the negative thing. You can also assign points values to each item on your list. For example, you might assign plus 5 points to an item on the switch to part-time work. List call will get to have dinner with my kids every night. On the other hand, you might assign 20 points to an item on the same list titled will make 900 less per month. After you are finishing while making the spreadsheet, you can add up the points values and determine which decision has the highest score. Just keep in mind that you may not be able to make a decision using this strategy alone. Let the space between thoughts to arise. Creative people might not know it, but their ideas, decisions and solutions come at times when they are not thinking or thinking slowly, which means creative and intelligent solutions or ideas come from a thoughtless state of consciousness, which is why people meditate. Meditation will help you to take a right kind of decision, to move in a right kind of direction. It will help you to stay you cool and calm, and it will strengthen your mental caliber. It is important to ask questions and gather information or knowledge before making a decision. But if you want to come up with a truly creative and intelligent decision, you need to stop thinking, or at least slow down the thinking. Breath meditation is one of the structureless methods to bring a space between thoughts that allows the creativity and universal intelligence emerge through. It's a structureless cause it doesn't require you to dedicate a lot of time, as you can become aware of your breath while doing daily tasks like cooking, brushing, teething, walking, etc. Consider an example. A musician has knowledge and information, that is tools, about how to make music like playing instrument, sing, songwriting, etc. But it is the creative intelligence that comes through them that drives the tools. Yes, knowledge about music, instruments, singing, etc. is important, but it is the creative intelligence that is the essence of the song. That is to say that what kind of rhythm one should follow, what kind of lyric, what kind of instrument, different ragas, that is all your intelligence. Learn to distinguish between an impulse and intelligent decision. Impulse usually dissolves after some time. For example, impulse to eat, shop, travel, etc. However, an intelligent decision stays in consciousness for a while. It could be days, week, or month. An intelligent decision may come in the form of an impulse, but be aware if you feel the same way about the decision after some time. That is why taking gaps after collecting information by asking questions helps to make intelligent decision. Notice the quality of action. Make this experiment. Notice the quality of action after you take a few deep breaths as compared to when your actions arise out of an impulse. Now, making the decision that advise yourself as if you were a friend. Consider yourself a friend. Sometimes taking a step back from the decision can help you to determine the right choice. Think about what you would tell a good friend who was struggling with the same decision, means putting yourself in other shoes. What decision would you advise them to make? What would you try to get them to see about that decision? Why would you counsel them in this way? Try role playing to use this strategy. Sit beside an empty chair and pretend that you are talking to yourself as if you were someone else. Means complete detachment. You are not attached to yourself. And then take decision without any inhibitions and any personal attachment. If you would rather not sit and talk to yourself, you can also try writing yourself a letter offering advice. Start your letter by saying, "Dear X, I have considered your situation and I think that the best thing for you to do is to something." That you can write to join this or to work or to play. Continue the letter by explaining your point of view from an outsider's perspective. Play devil's advocate. That is also a very important part. Playing devil's advocate can help you decide how you really feel about a decision because it forces you to take the opposite perspective and argue for it as if it is your own. If your argument against something you wanted to do starts to make a lot of sense, then you will have new information to consider. To play devil's advocate, try to argue against every good reason you have for wanting to make your preferred choice. If it is easy to do, then you may find that you really want to make a different choice. This is also a kind of experiment. For example, if you are leaning towards going part-time to spend more time with your kids, contradict yourself by pointing out that you spend lots of quality time with your kids on the weekends and during your vacation times. You can also point out that the money and potential promotions you will lose are worth missing out on some family dinner because they can benefit your children more than an extra couple of hours of your time every night. They will also benefit your own ambition, which is worthy of consideration too. Consider whether you are feeling guilty. Well, that you can do that. Making a decision out of guilt is common. But guilt is not a helpful motivator for healthy decision making. Guilt often twists our perception of events and outcomes so that we aren't seeing them or our role in them clearly. Guilt can be particularly common for working women who face extra social pressure to perfectly balance work and family life. It happens with a working woman. Doing things because we feel guilty can also be harmful. Because you see, you are working under a stress. you may not give a very fruitful result. You may not take a better decision. So doing things because we feel guilty can also be harmful, because it can lead us to make decisions that are not congruent with our values. Very true. It is a fact. One way to recognize guilt motivation is to look for should under inverted comma or must under inverted comma statements. For example, you might feel as though good parents should spend all the time with their children, or a parent who works X number of hours must be a bad parent. These statements are based on external judgment, not your own values. So, to determine whether your decision is being driven by guilt, try to step back and examine the actual situation, as well as what your personal values, your core belief that govern your life tell you is right. Are your children actually suffering because you are working full time? Or do you feel that way because that is how you have been told by others you should feel? Think about the future. At the end of the day, the best way to make a decision is to think about how you are going to feel about it in a few years. Think about what you will think of yourself when you look in the mirror, how you will explain it to your grandkids. If you don't like what the long-term repercussions are going to be, you may need to rethink your approach. That is why twice, thrice you think before taking any decision. For example, do you think that in 10 years you will regret the decision to move to part-time? Maybe. If so, why? What might you accomplish in 10 years of working full-time that you will not accomplish in 10 years of working part-time? Trust your instinct. You probably have a sense of which decision is the right one. So, if all else fails, you should go with your gut. Make your decision based on what feels right, even if the spreadsheet says otherwise. Research has shown that people who make decisions based on how they feel tend to be more satisfied with their decision than people who carefully weigh them out. Yes, this is the fact. Ask yourself what you want to do. Chances are you have a good sense of which decision will make you feel the happiest, and you should lean towards that decision. It is the change and the discomfort with the unknown that's making the decision difficult. That is why, you also know, follow your gut. Taking some moments for quiet reflection can help you get in touch with your intuition. That is maybe sixth sense. The more decisions you practice making, the more you can refine and hone your intuition. Have a backup plan. Always keep this. Thinking ahead may help you to feel less bothered by any possible negative outcomes. Make a backup plan to deal with your worst case scenario. Even if you are unlikely to need this plan, simply having a backup plan will help you to feel better equipped to deal with the worst case scenario. People who are in leadership positions are expected to always have a backup plan, because there is always a chance that something might go wrong. This strategy may be helpful for making minor decisions as well. Having a backup plan will also allow you to respond to unforeseen challenges or setbacks with flexibility. Your ability to adapt to unexpected circumstances can directly affect your ability to succeed with your decision. Make a choice. No matter which decision you make, be prepared to accept responsibility for every outcome. If things don't work out, it is always better to have made a conscious decision than to have been careless. At least you can say that you did the best you could. Make your decision and be ready to stand by it. That is why making a choice is very important. No scenario is perfect. Once you have made a decision, carry it out wholeheartedly, as best as you can, without regrets and without worrying about the other alternatives you did not pick. Consider that all your options may be about equally good if you have thought about the decision for a very long time. In that case, all the options may have great advantages and great disadvantages. You would have already made the decision if one of the options could be proven to be significantly better than the previous ones. Remember that you may not have enough information to make good decision. Do more research if you are having trouble narrowing down your options. Also realize that the information you need may not be available to you. After reviewing all the information you may have to go ahead and make a decision. After your decision is made, new major information may come to light, suggesting alterations to or the wholesale reversal of your original decision. Be willing to go through the decision-making process again if this happens. Flexibility is an excellent skill. If you try too hard, you may miss the obvious. Avoid overthinking. Treat all experiences as learning experiences. By making important decisions, you will always learn to face the consequences and use even setback as learning experiences from which you can grow and adapt. Now, it is important to discuss a few things about, decision theory, because decision making is a kind of art and to some extent science also. So, decision theory is concerned with the reasoning underlying an agent's choices, whether this is a mundane choice between taking the bus or getting a taxi, or a more far-reaching choice about whether to pursue a demanding political career. A standard thinking is that what an agent does on any given occasion is completely determined by her beliefs and desires, values. But this is not uncontroversial, as will be noted what I am going to cite. In any case, decision theory is as much a theory of beliefs, desires and other relevant attitude as it is a theory of choice. What matters is how these various attitudes, call them preference attitude, cohere together. The focus of this entry is normative decision theory. That is, the main question of interest is what criteria an agent's preference attitude should satisfy in any generic circumstances. The orthodox normative decision theory, expected utility theory, essentially says that in situations of uncertainty, one should prefer the option with greatest expected desirability or value. What are preferences over prospects? The two central concepts in decision theory are preferences and prospects, or equivalently options. Roughly speaking, we say that an agent prefers the option A over B just in case for the agent in question the former is more desirable or choice worthy than the latter. This rough definition makes clear that preference is a comparative attitude. It is one of comparing options in terms of how desirable, choice-worthy they are. Beyond this, there is room for argument about what preferences over options actually amount to, or in other words, what it is about an agent, perhaps oneself, that concern us when we talk about his or her preferences over options. This amounts to a minimal account of rationality, one that sets aside more substantial questions about appropriate values and preferences and reasonable beliefs given the situation at hand. The key issue in this regard is the treatment of uncertainty. Using a step-by-step decision-making process can help you make more deliberate, thoughtful decisions by organizing relevant information and defining alternatives. This approach increases the chances that you will choose the most satisfying alternatives possible. Step 1, identify the decision. You realize that you need to make a decision. Try to clearly define the nature of the decision you must make. The first step is very important. Gather relevant information. Collect some pertinent information before you make your decision. What information is needed? The best source of information and how to get it. This step involves both internal and external work. Some information is internal. You will seek it through a process of self-assessment. Other information is external. You will find it online, books, from other people and from other sources. Identify the alternatives. As you collect information, you will probably identify several possible paths of action or alternatives. You can also use your imagination and additional information to construct new alternative. In this step, you will list all possible and desirable investigation. Weight the evidence. Draw on your information and emotion to imagine what it would be like if you carried out each of alternative to the end. Evaluate whether the need identifies in step 1 would be met or resolved through the use of each alternative. As you go through this difficult internal process, you will begin to favor certain alternatives, those that seem to have a higher potential for reaching your goal. Finally, place the alternatives in a priority order based upon your own value system. Step 5, choose among alternatives. Once you have weighed all the evidence, you are ready to select the alternative that seems to be the best one for you. You may even choose a combination of alternatives. Your choice in step 5 may very likely to be the same or similar to the alternative you placed at the top of your list at the end of the step 4. Step 6 is take action. You are now ready to take some positive action by beginning to implement the alternative you chose in step 5. Step 7 is to review your decision and its consequences. In this final step, consider the result of your decision and evaluate whether or not it has resolved the need you identified in step 1. If the decision has not met the identified need, you may want to repeat certain steps of the process to make a new decision. For example, you might want to gather more detailed or somewhat different information or explore additional alternative. Now, there are certain warnings before taking decision. Avoid stressing yourself out too much. That will only make things worse. Stay away from people who make it seem as though they want what is best for you but assume they know what that is and you don't. Their suggestions might be right, but if they refuse to account for your feeling and concern, they might be very, very wrong as well. Also, stay away from people who shoot down your benefits. Well, while summing up my discussion on decision making, I want to say that decision making is not only about shifting through choices, but shifting through your needs and fears. Ultimately, decisions are steps towards creating the life you want. Thank you very much. Have a good day.